Today, I'm going to look at the following question. Given that x is bigger than 0, find the two smallest values of x in radians, of which 3 tan brackets 2x plus 1 is equal to 1. Show all necessary working. I picked this question for two reasons. Number one, it's not a simple trig equation to solve. It's not like tan x equals 0.5 between 0 and 360 degrees. There's a stretch and there's a translation. There's a lot more going on. And secondly, it's the kind of question that I see all the time, students doing the maths correctly, but not actually answering the question. And you can see here that I've underlined the key points. And I really want to highlight a couple of things. Firstly, x is bigger than 0, so any answer you get has to achieve that. Secondly, it's two smallest values of x, and it has to be in radians. So again, I've talked about how people do the maths right, but they've got the question wrong because they've given an answer that say x is less than 0, or given it in radians, or found some values of x, but they're not necessarily the smallest values. So let's go through how to do this. So first of all, we've got 3 tan 2x plus 1 is equal to 1. And the first step is just simply rearrange that. So we're going to get tan 2x plus 1 is equal to a third. And what we'll do, we will do the inverse tan. So we'll say 2x plus 1 is equal to inverse tan 1 over 3. And at this point, what we're going to do, we're going to get some solutions for the inverse tan before we do anything else. So 2x plus 1, the first solution of inverse tan, the one I got on my calculator, inverse tan of a third, was equal to 0.322. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just do a couple more. So with tan, what you do is that it repeats every 180 degrees. And as it's in radians, it's going to repeat every pi radians. So we're just going to add pi to each answer. So 3.22 plus pi will be our next answer. And then we'll chuck in another one, 3.22 plus 2 pi. Okay, and we'll just pause there for a sec. So what next? Let's focus on this one and let's rearrange. So 2x plus 1 is equal to 0.322. And then just do an arrow there to indicate that the next step. So then I'm going to get 2x is equal to 0.322 minus 1. And I'm going to stop here. The reason for that is the first criteria. X has to be bigger than 0. And 0.322 minus 1 is going to give me a negative answer. And even if you divide by 2, that's also going to give me a negative answer, which is not what the question wants. So I'm going to stop here. So this one is not a valid solution. How about this one? So 3.22 plus pi gives me an answer of 3.463. So we'll just write that down here. And then we'll rearrange that. So we get 2x is equal to 3.463 minus 1. So that's going to give me 2.463. And then we'll just finish off here. X will give me that divided by 2, which will be 1.23. Okay. And let's have a look. Does that achieve the following? X is bigger than 0? Yes. Is it the smallest value? Certainly, because that's our next value after the one that was less than 0. So therefore, we're all good with this one. Now, let's try this one. So this will certainly give us our next smallest value. So 0.322 plus 2 pi, that is going to give us 6.05. And then we'll just, once again, rearrange that. So 2x is equal to 5.605, then divide by 2. X will give us the answer of 2.80. And that looks good to me. X is bigger than 0, check. Two smallest values of x, check. In radians, check. And therefore, we have achieved the question. Now, before I go, I just want to mention the potential pitfalls. So number one is continuing on from the tan minus 1 to a third. I've seen a lot of times where students don't actually output the values. So your first step is always, whenever you've got a question like this, where you've got stretches and shifts and that kind of thing, is rearrange for the inverse trig function and then get some values out. Okay, and that's just using your calculator So for tan, it repeats every 180, but for sine, you have to, then cosine, you have to use different methods. Secondly, the rearrangement. So again, another pitfall, just make sure you get your rearrangement correct. Third, and I think this is the main one, just not doing what the question says. So giving an answer where x is less than 0, not doing the two smallest values of x. Well, what we're going to do next, if you go over to one of my computational mathematics classes, we're going to do this question, but we're going to use Python.